You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DAHLIA, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one of the biggest headlines of the day is Hillary Clinton is currently testifying as it pertains to the relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And while these proceedings are going on, there's been some drama. Somebody took a picture, and we'll talk about that. But many people are asking, why is Hillary Clinton there? Bill Clinton, when he testifies, he's going to be testifying, I think, tomorrow. He doesn't have the best, shall we say, track record. You guys remember this one?
I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah, listen, Bill Clinton, it's going to be very, very interesting to see his testimony. And Hillary is upset. She has appeared reluctantly because James Comer, Republican chair, threatened with contempt of Congress charges. And so she and Bill Clinton are going to be testifying as it pertains to their relationship with Jeff Epstein, what they knew. Now, I don't see a lot of pictures of Hillary Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, but you do see Bill Clinton with pictures next to women whose faces are redacted from the Epstein files. I think one is in a hot tub. Another is, and again, this could just have been a date he had. I mean, obviously it's highly concerning because he was married to Hillary this whole time. But people are concerned that the individuals in the hot tub with him or in some of these pictures were victims. What are they going to get out of Hillary Clinton? She says she has no information on Epstein's criminal activities, never recalls meetings with them. She's saying that Republicans are pivoting away from Trump. And, she said that you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation in order to distract attention from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. So she's being deposed at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center near their home in Westchester County. Former President Bill Clinton is going to testify tomorrow. But she says if this committee is serious about learning the truth of Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files. Now, Trump, very interestingly, you don't see pictures of him with any victims or girls or anything like that. However, prior to the falling out he had, I believe, with Jeffrey Epstein to a real estate deal, I think Epstein was at his wedding, maybe with Marla Maples. And I mean, somehow Jeffrey Epstein was able to wiggle into the high New York society. And I also believe he was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. And so when, people say, well, Hillary Clinton didn't have any dealings with him, and it could just be he was just really close buddies with Bill Clinton. For Jeffrey Epstein to possibly be at her daughter's wedding. I know she distanced herself from him, but she got a $20,000 donation from him, I believe, in 1999 when she was fundraising for the DNC. Actually, it wasn't Jeffrey Epstein. I think it was Ghislaine Maxwell, his infamous madam, who went to Chelsea Clinton wedding. And apparently Hillary met with Maxwell. So if Hillary Clinton is going to testify she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, the next question is, well, what were then your dealings with Ghislaine Maxwell? As she has been convicted and is serving a 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking. I am of the mindset that whoever engaged helped orchestrate the horrific crimes that were done to underage girls and the trafficking. They all need to be held accountable. Where things are going to expand to if they do not find all the, shall we say, individuals. I mean, we do have testimony from the victims, but some of them are very, very afraid to speak out of who they were with because they don't want what happened to Jeffrey Epstein to happen to them, even though everybody's claiming, oh, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein hung himself. Yeah, no, I think he was strangled. But that's just my opinion. I can't say that's fact. But then who knew? And if somebody knew, why didn't they report it? So, will President Trump have immunity? Will President Trump be testifying? I mean, I don't think personally, and again, this has, just from what I'm seeing with the pictures and the files and all that, you don't see him with any of the girls. He was either with Marla Maples or he was either with Melania. When you saw him near Epstein and Epstein taking photos with them, I don't really believe he partook in that. But where people are going to fault him is, did he know? And who knew? Did Whoopi Goldberg know? I guess somebody wanted to borrow one of her planes or rent one of her planes. I don't believe she did. I don't believe, however, there is a rumor that a police chief had said that when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, Trump told him, he was a bad guy. This was something that, we all knew he was a bad guy. And so they said people in New York knew he was disgusting. And so, if that's the case, somebody is going to say, well, okay, if, then who all knew? Who all knew? And then why did they say anything? And so what's unfortunate is, we've seen this with very, very powerful individuals where their activities get overlooked. And who knew what? That's going to be a lot harder to prove. But because Hillary is married to Bill and she appeared to have certain, shall we say, interactions with one of the ringleaders of the sex trafficking ring, it is appropriate to interview her. It's appropriate to interview Trump. It's appropriate to interview all of them. Just, I'm not sure what's going to be found out about Bill. I mean, these pictures of him in hot tubs and things like that aren't really good looks. Now, have I been in hot tubs with individuals and not necessarily, having relationships with them? Yeah. You go to a pool at a hotel, you jump in the hot tub. There's people in the hot tub. But it is going to draw a very interesting testimony tomorrow. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
Welcome back to the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So 1 in 5 kids, we're talking about little kids and preteens and teens, 1 in 5 of them are obese. Now, this is opposed to 1 in 20 back in the 1970s. And if you look at the pictures of, people at the beach and kids and birthday parties and schools, and it's like night and day. We have gotten so obese. Adults, we got a little bit of good news. The number is starting to go down in terms of adults. And we'll talk about that. So looking at the data, this comes from the CDC. And researchers used measured heights and weights from the National Health Nutritional Examination Survey and Haynes, run by the CDC National Center for Health Statistics. It looks at trends for over 6 decades. In the first report, they found that between August of 21 and August of 23, 40.3% of adults aged 20 or older were found to be obese, which is still ridiculously high. We're looking at almost 50%. And by the way, including people in their 20s. I mean, my metabolism in my 20s was amazing, including those. So you could just imagine what the middle-age numbers skewed then would be. But anyway, of 20 on up, 40.3% obese, 9.7% severe obese, and 31.7% classified as overweight. By comparison, if you looked back to 1988 to 1994, only 22.9% of adults aged 20 or older were obese, including 2.8% with severe obesity and 33.1% classified as overweight. We still had an obesity issue, but it was 1 in 5 adults. I remember learning about this in medical school. 1 in 5 adults are obese. Well, now it's 1 in 5 kids, and we're looking at almost half of adults being obese. So the numbers are horrible. Got a little bit of good news, because in the 2017 to 2018 survey, 42.4% of adults were classified as obese. For us now being down to 40.3, it is a decrease. This downward trend is positive. It is the first time in decades we're seeing a leveling off and even a little bitty decrease. So many people are crediting the GLP-1s, the glucagon-like peptide-1 receptor agonists, that kind of mimic the GLP-1 hormone, makes us feel more full, slows transit, not without its side effects, helping produce more insulin, affecting our sugar uptake and our metabolism. And so people have been using them to lose weight. We're seeing Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound. So then people are going to say, all right, well, then look at kids. If we're seeing the numbers go down in adults, why aren't we using these medications in kids? I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if I'm really excited about these medications, because because with adults, what nobody's talking about are the people that can't afford the medication and can't, continue to purchase them, can't continue to stay on them because of side effects. We aren't hearing about all the rebound weight people are getting, and that's what I'm seeing as a doctor, because patients are like, no, I got to get back on it. The weight's coming back fast. Help me. How do I afford this? Now, I believe, is it Novo Nordisk is going to take that $1,100 or $1,500 price tag and knock it down to $675, which is nice, and I'm glad, and I'm glad that Trump is telling these pharmaceutical companies, we're not going to pay more than other countries. Okay, we're going to be paying the same amount that Mexico gets to pay, or the UK. You're not going to charge us more. But still, if you had to pay $675 a month, I mean, that's rent. That's a lot for these medications. And the thing is we know how to lose weight. Okay, so the reason why I'm giving a mulligan with these GLP-1 agonists, all right, is because with your adults and with, maybe their lack of exercise or their metabolic issues or whatever, they're getting diabetes. We don't have that much time. With kids, okay, we know how to make kids skinny. We've done it for years. I get with adults, yeah, we know too, but these adults aren't sticking with it. And they aren't dieting, they aren't eating good food, they aren't, but with kids, okay, we have more control. Because when they sit down to eat at the dinner table, you have the plate that you could give them. What did we do with kids in their, back in the 70s? You got to eat your vegetables. You're going to have vegetables. You'll have a protein. And no, you don't get dessert after every meal. You're going to have some orange juice and maybe some eggs, maybe some avocado toast for breakfast. You're not going to have sugary cereal. Sugary cereal cost money. I remember the Nature Valley granola. It was delicious. And it was like a 2-pound maroon-looking box. And I remember when my mom would buy that, and it was really special because it was expensive, that box. And so we would get a little bit of that, and we would, because it was expensive. Now you could get, I was at the grocery store, 99 cents. You could get Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is delicious, but how is that healthy? See, we know how to make kids skinny again. Let's just go back to the 1970s, the 1980s. You're not going to be eating McDonald's. You're not going to be eating pizza for dinner. Mom's going to cook. Dad's going to cook. Older brother or sister's going to cook. You're going to do single ingredient food. You're going to eat a balanced diet. You're going to get out there and exercise. We know how to make skinny kids. We don't have to go to the GLP ones. The problem is it's going to be asked. Society is going to say, we got to put these kids on these shots. What happens when the kids don't change some of their attitudes towards food and sugary foods and sugary snacks? And what happens when the shot kind of wears off? And now you're spending $675 or $500 or $1,000 or whatever to try to keep them on that shot. We have got to, in order to handle obesity, I was just always of the mindset you have to exercise every day. I don't go to bed without having done some workout. I have to brush my teeth. I have to do my skincare, and I got to work out. Otherwise, I don't get to go to bed that day. Even if I'm sick, even when I don't have blood and they say not to exercise, I still do some sort of a workout. When I was on bed rest, with both my kids in pregnancy, I still worked out. I worked out in bed. I did leg lifts. I did arms. I did whatever I could. That was the mindset. You just have to exercise. Just something you have to do. Now it's, PE is 2 days a week. Did you do your 2 days? Then you're good. It's a whole different mindset. And I got to tell you, I have many individuals on these medications going, I can't afford to stay on them. Or they're not working. So why would you do that to a kid? Now, what I do recommend is if you have a child that has severe comorbidities, or they have Prader-Willi syndrome, or they have something that is causing such obesity that diet and exercise will not work, you have got to save their lives. And yes, that will involve probably pharmaceutical intervention, including the GLP-1s. But you have a kid who's eating Doritos, eating junk food, and whose dinner is pizza, when our whole, our whole supplemental nutrition assistance program is supposed to be about use this for healthy foods, things like that. No, I don't think those GLP-1s are going to do a service for them. Maybe temporarily, but you're going to try to manipulate the kid's brain to not be hungry. Okay, you have to train a child's brain to, is if you're hungry, go and drink some water. By the way, let's get rid of the plastic. I think the plastic's also making us fat. So you have a glass bottle or something, or aluminum, something that won't leach chemicals. Stainless steel probably is better than aluminum. You're hungry. I want you to drink water. I want you to go and grab a banana, or grab one of those bell peppers. Put that in your mouth. Now, one of the reasons why adult obesity is so high is because they stopped smoking. When you look back in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, when they got hungry, they would smoke. We took away smoking, which we should have, which was a smart move, but now we have this big obesity crisis. And I'm noticing a lot of people are going back to Zen pouches, or they're going to tobacco, or they're going whatever to try to keep their weight down because they can't afford the GLP-1s. We got to find something else for adults also. But if an adult wants to spend $1,000 a month, they want to spend $1,000 a month. Can't commit a kid to that, because when that kid ends up going off to school or moving out when they're 18, how do they pay for that? So we talked about how heart disease is on the rise. Now we are seeing people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s have high heart disease. We got to work on these kids early on, because, telling them, don't worry, you can eat whatever the hell you want and we'll just give you a shot, or a GLP-1 pill, that's not going to solve the problem long term. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So things are expensive. They are. And it's kind of ridiculous. I have 2 adult kids. I would love for them to get a home. I was able to get my first home when I was 26. I was only making about $1.15 an hour in residency. Working 36 plus hour shifts. I think my salary was $35,000 a year. And, we were able to pull money together, get a first time home buyer mortgage loan rate, a mortgage. And we were able to get into a home for $126,000. And I moonlighted. I was rarely in that house because I was working so much, but we were able to get into it. And then by the time I finished residency and then had my first child and all that, it was a struggle. But for us, what ended up happening was the homes went up. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so the home had gone up to the point that the profit I made on the house was able to then be used to get a bigger house. And one, in a good school district, things like that. And so then we just kind of parlayed it that way. And as houses went up, we were able to sell the house and then use that profit on the house as the house went up. When the houses crashed, now your house is underwater and you can't sell, you're stuck. But I was very, very fortunate to feel like even with our very, very modest incomes and high student loans, we were still able to get into a home and build up equity. We lived in apartments. And in fact, we lived in apartments until I think my son. Yeah, and apartments were fantastic, but we couldn't build equity. And so we had to finally make that move and scrape together and do what we could do to get into the home. And that's why, because people are like, how did you work in residency? Anytime I had a day off, I drove down to Arizona and I would do a shift in the ER urgent care. And I ended up doing that every week, and it was exhausting. But we needed the money. And I did it up until I delivered my son. I did it when I was pregnant. And my husband, said, don't work. You don't have to work. We'll make this work. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, no, we need a home. And we made it happen, and it was good. And I like to work. I'm a workaholic. Even if he told me no, I wasn't going to listen to him. I wanted to work. So But nowadays, it's just ridiculous, the prices. And so Trump has pledged to make housing more affordable. He said that there's been a $5,000 drop in annual mortgage costs since he took office because of inflation going down and because of the interest rates going down. So I can't tell because, again, our mortgage rate was locked in, but we got our mortgage rate when it was like 2.6% for our home. I don't own my home in full. I mean, everything I own, it's borrowed. We got car payments. We got just because student loans and costs and supporting family, extended family. We've just never really been able to get ahead. But I'm grateful. At least our mortgage is at 2.6%. I really should, at my age, be at the point where the house is paid in full. But no, it's not going to happen. But he said mortgage rates are lowest in 4 years and falling fast, and the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down now $5,000. That's huge. He says low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem, while at the same time protecting the values of those people who already own a house and really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We are going to do both, and we are going to keep it that way. Well, big problem with housing, is most people don't have, in the olden days, you wouldn't, necessarily borrow. You would buy or purchase nobody can buy a home with cash, unless if you're coming from California, if you're one of these rich corporations. So according to Freddie Mac, the average rate of a 30-year fixed mortgage declined from 7.04% to 6%. 6% is still high, but it is better. So lower interest rates could help with the affordability of mortgages. But I got to tell you, even with my 2.6%, I'm still paying a lot in interest. So we need less interest, but that's how the banks make their money. And then we also need people not outpricing us out of the market. Anytime I get excited about, a house or a piece of property, and I'm like, okay, well, let's lowball so that we could afford it. There's no lowballing anymore because somebody from California will pay the price, pay what's being asked. In fact, I don't know if our mortgage was 10%. I remember we refied our house to help pay off our student loans back in the teens. And I think it was 2014. We're in the depth of a recession. We couldn't really afford our house. We put it on the market. And I told my husband, and he's like, gosh, how do we price it? I go, let's price it a little bit higher. Because I got a feeling that California is really, really struggling during this recession. It's going to be somebody from California who'll think the house is a steal. So I wouldn't underprice it. Let's just for poops and giggles. And then if we have a problem in a week or two, then we lower the price. That day, somebody offered to buy our house at that price. Somebody tried to lowball and we're like, sorry, we already have somebody saying that somebody's going to pay at cost. And then they started a little bidding war. And I was like, wow. So, when you have people who have more money coming from an area or fleeing California, that's one of the issues we're having in Nevada, up in northern Nevada and southern Nevada, is the housing prices are, nobody's really negotiating because people from California are like, I could pay that. I'm selling my home in California with top dollar, and I could pay cash for what you're asking. So I'm looking at comps, and I'm like, are you flipping kidding me? That is not an $800,000 home. You're really? Because somebody from California is like, hey, that's a steal. I could get out of California. I could have less taxes. And then the other issue are these big companies buying up homes. So Trump has discussed in his plan to ban institutional investors from buying large numbers of homes. And so I guess one of the guests at the State of the Union was outbid for 20 homes by gigantic investment firms that bypassed inspection. They paid all cash, turned those houses into rentals, and stole her, quote, American dream. The president said that stories like this prompted his executive order banning large investment firms from buying homes and called on Congress to make that ban permanent, adding that we want homes for people, not for corporations. So his order directs federal regulators to promote home sales to individuals and to issue guidance involving preventing federal programs from facilitating single-family home sales to Wall Street investors. The order also mandates antitrust scrutiny of institutional home purchases and calls on Congress to codify changes to the law. So this is big. As much as the Republican side of things is less government, Trump is not the typical Republican. He's like, how do I, speak to the people, and how do I, make something work? And these corporations are pulling money together, and they go, well, let's buy a bunch of homes, and we rent them out. And then we're driving up the prices of the homes so then we can turn around and sell them. Trump knows real estate because he was involved in real estate. And, sometimes we do need government to step in. And if the average person is looking at housing prices as, $500,000 for a 1,200 square foot 2-bedroom in the middle of a desert, that's, with no land, no pool, kids can't move into things like that. It's too ridiculously high. And you want a population and a generation of younger adults to get equity, to not be on the government dime. These younger generations need to have 401ks. They need to have equity in their home. They need to be building something. And if they're just paying rent and they're not able to, have a 401, and they're going to be, very vulnerable in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So, yes, I think something does have to be done. Now, I know some of you are like, well, I wanted to buy a home and then rent it out. That should still be fine. I think this is all about these big companies. So being a landlord and renting a home, I think will still be fine. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out. We're back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So a very frightening development over the last day or so occurred where there was a rare shootout on the high seas involving a Florida-registered speedboat and 10 Cuban nationals believed to be living in the U.S. Now we have Havana, Cuba, and Washington, D.C. investigating what the heck happened. According to USA Today, Cuban authorities said that when the boat was intercepted in its territorial waters yesterday, those aboard were carrying assault rifles, handguns, improvised explosive devices, bulletproof vests, and other tactical military gear. 4 were killed, 6 were arrested. Another man was detained in Cuba accusing of aiding the men in the boat. Cuba's Interior Ministry has accused all of the people involved of taking part in a terrorist plot. Officials in Washington have not corroborated that accusation. Cuba has identified one of the 4 men killed as Miguel Ortega Casanova. It said it was still working to identify the other 3. So this is very shocking. According to USA Today, among those detained, according to Cuban authorities, were Amijail Sanchez Gonzalez, Leordan Enrique Cruz Gomez, Conrado Galindo Sariol, Jose Manuel Rodriguez Castello, Cristian Ernesto Acosta Guevara, Roberto Ascora Consuegra, and Duniel Hernandez Santos were identified as a man arrested on Cuban soil. Now, Cuba has said the majority of the participants in the incident have a history of criminal and violent activity, but there's been some some debate. Orlando Gutierrez Boronat, who is of the Assembly of the Cuban Resistance, it's an exile group that opposes the Cuban regime, said don't put too much credence into the details of the incident. His name appears on the same Cuban terrorist group as Sanchez Gonzalez for allegedly starting an anti-Castro guerrilla group that was actually created 6 years before he was born. He said they have a history of lying and committing crimes. Why should we believe anything they say, especially at a moment now when there's real pressure on them? So Sanchez Gonzalez, 47 years old, was arrested in Miami-Dade County in 2020, charged with aggravated battery of a law enforcement officer resisting arrest, fleeing the scene of a crime, reckless driving, property damage according to public records. He spent a year in jail. 2 years later, he was back in jail on charges of tampering with an electric monitor, which is a felony offense. He's one of the 2 men detained this week who Cuba's Ministry of Justice previously added to their international most wanted list. And he lives in a suburb of Miami-Dade County. And in the Justice Ministry Gazette, Sanchez Gonzalez was accused of inciting an act of sabotage against the Municipal People's Court of Central Havana in 2022. I'm not sure, again, why they're in America. And apparently he's allegedly financed by supporters here in America. Not sure if they are here legally. We obviously have a lot of questions, and USA Today lists, the other men that are on Cuba's international most wanted. Cuba's kind of stayed, not as very vocal with everything else going on with Venezuela and Mexico and and Iran and all that, and so there's drama. There's definite drama. Unfortunately, we don't want any of our citizens getting killed. We don't want there to be a war between us and Cuba. I'm not sure. A lot of us are still questioning Secretary of State Marco Rubio said they are investigating and they are going to take, obviously, what they're getting from Cuba with a grain of salt, in so many words, and they're going to be doing their own investigation. And so, the Cuban government is accusing the 10 people aboard the speedboat as an armed infiltration with terrorist aims. And Marco Rubio said that Washington was investigating this highly unusual incident. I mean, we Americans would not be sending, a group of individuals that just would. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like anything that we would do. And Rubio said it was not a U.S. government operation, and he wasn't going to speculate about whose boat it was, what they were doing, why they were there, and what actually happened. Good, but there is increased tension between U.S. and Cuba, and so. Because Cuba was allied with Nicolas Maduro, Venezuelan leader. So, and Venezuela has supplied Cuba's oil for more than 2 decades. So, and the wake of the U.S. operation, Washington imposed an oil embargo on Cuba. However, in recent days, it has moved to ease those restrictions as Cuba's Caribbean nation neighbors have warned that the embargo could destabilize the entire region. So this could be destabilizing. We'll keep you posted. Shocking, though. Also destabilizing was a sinkhole that suddenly opened up at a red light in Nebraska. I don't know if you saw this in Omaha. I've been to Omaha multiple times, beautiful city. But unfortunately, a Dodge Ram pickup and a Jeep SUV were stopped at the intersection of 67th and Pacific Streets on Tuesday afternoon. And you're just watching them at the streetlight, and then all of a sudden, the ground sinks underneath. Both vehicles plunge into the deep hole, according to the University of Nebraska Omaha Public Safety. According to New York Post, the truck driver was able to climb out of his passenger side door, pull himself out to the street. Good Samaritans pulled back. You saw people behind that go, whoa. They pulled back. It's interesting. You almost see a little bit of a pause. And you would think as soon as somebody would see the sinkhole, they would be. But if they were at a stoplight looking at their phone, then they probably looked up. Was like, wait a second, wasn't there a car in front of me? Or what? And then they're like, whoa. And then you see them pull back. And then Good Samaritans stopped the cars, ran over, helped lift the driver out of the Jeep. And then there also looks like a SUV. Oh, yeah, there's the SUV, and then there's the truck. Omaha Police Lieutenant Dan Martin told WOWT this caught everybody by surprise. And thank God no injuries were reported. Both vehicles were hauled out of the hole by a heavy-duty tow truck around 5:30 p.m. It looks like they were able to lift using cranes to get them out. This was within 2 hours after the road caved in. A water main broke after the cars fell in, and Omaha Police Department said they expected the road to be closed for several days, warning that the sinkhole could expand. Sinkholes scare me. Sinkholes will swallow buildings, cause immeasurable destruction. When we looked at what happened with the Champlain Towers in, was it Miami? 10 were injured, 10 people died, 150 residents. There were multiple people and cats and pets unaccounted for. One of the victims was on the phone with her husband. And while right before the collapse, she said she looked out the window and there was a sinkhole where the pool was. And then she screamed and the phone call disconnected. So Mike Stratton heard his wife die. It was 1:30 a.m. He says, I'll never forget that. And so she looked outside and saw that the pool was missing. Now, they said it wasn't a sinkhole, but sinkholes can swallow buildings, cause destruction like you've never believed. And it's a sudden sinking of the Earth's surface where the subsurface changes. There's like underground limestone, carbonate rock, salt beds, rocks may become dissolved, weathered by underground water. And, we build asphalt and we build on the ground, but the ground could shift, lose its thickness and its strength. And the below ground will not be strong enough to maintain a truck and an SUV or a building, and then structures fall. They say multiple factors could be at play with the drink hole. Just any disruption of the integrity of the below ground rock will cause a domino effect. Water dissolves minerals in the rocks. It could leave residue, open spaces, cause weathering. Water could wash away soil and residue that from the voids in the rock, and then that could loosen things up like we could see in Florida. Lowering of groundwater levels can cause a loss of support for the soft material in the rock. Changing groundwater gradients due to removing or introducing water into the system could cause loose material to flush out quicker from the voids, and then a surface could collapse. A change in the hydraulic system, either putting more water in or taking water out, could also make it unstable. And then seasonal changes, freezing, thawing of the ground. So if there's any new cracks in buildings, doors or windows become harder to close or open, cabinets and drawers made out of line, fences appear irregular or fallen, signs of tilted, ground appears depressed, new puddles or bodies of water, floors bulging, that could be the sign of a sinkhole. Get it checked out immediately. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.